Do you ever wonder how, like, people that are very successful accomplish amazing things? Maybe this is an athlete that is in the Olympics or just in your favorite ball team and they are crushing it. Or how someone paints this amazing masterpiece, Michelangelo, the Sistine Chapel. I mean, how did they do that? How are people able to build and scale these incredible businesses or achieve monumental success, whether that's financially or relationally? Or how does, maybe you're wondering how you tackle a certain issue in your life that seems like it's monumental, seems like it's major. Well, the key to this is focus. So you have to ask yourself, where is your focus? Because if you can't focus, if you can't see, well, you're not going to be able to navigate. You're not going to be able to know where you're going or how to get there. It's very important that you pay attention to what you look at. You have to, to use the expression, keep your eye on the ball. You have to watch the target, and even more than that, you have to practice perseverance. You can't give up. If you combine focus with perseverance, they're similar but different, then you can achieve incredible things. There was once this king. He had this amazingly beautiful daughter, and it came time for her to marry. And so the king wasn't going to do the traditional arranged marriage. He wanted only the best for his daughter, and he wasn't looking for wealth. He wasn't looking for extreme handsomeness or good looks. He was looking for someone who had a heart to persevere. So he arranged a contest, and he said, now I'm going to invite all the men in the land, and you are welcome if you can pass my challenge to marry my daughter. Now the challenge was this, and people came from miles around. They lined up. They wanted to be in the palace, and they wanted to have her. And so as they proceeded to the front of the line, there was a massive suit of armor that was waiting for them. And the armor was extremely heavy. The king said, what you have to do is you have to put the armor on, and you have to climb. There was a series of 100 stone steps, and you have to climb to the top of this tower using these steps while wearing the armor. If you can get to the top, you can marry my daughter. And so some of the big, brawny, strongest men in the kingdom, they would put the armor on, and they would set up, and they would go up the first step and the second step, and it was so heavy, it was hard, and they would feel the pain and the muscles aching, and they would try to do another step, and they would say, man, this is exhausting. And so they would stop, and they would go back down. And the next guy would come up, and he'd put on the armor, and same thing. He'd go up, and he would just become exhausted. People couldn't make it past the first 3 steps. It was incredibly hard. Finally, this one guy, he was just a farmer from some village. He said, all right, I'm going to give this thing a shot. He actually was infatuated with the princess. He had dreamed about her, and he wanted to be with her more than anything in the world. And this was his opportunity to change his life. So he puts on the suit of armor, and he wasn't as big or as strong as some of the other guys, but he stepped up on that first step, and it took everything he had. And he thought at that point, I'm not going to be able to do this. There's 100 steps. And then he thought about her, and he said, no, I'm going to try. And so he pushed with everything he had, wearing that heavy armor, and he got up to the second step. He was exhausted. He wanted to give up. He wanted to turn back. But he said, no, I'm not. This is my dream. This is changing my life. And so he focused on the top. He pushed with everything he had. He didn't give up, and he got to the third step. And then he did it again, and he got to the fourth step. And then he got up to the fifth step. And he didn't think he had anything left in him. His knees were shaking. His muscles were trembling. He was just completely worn out. Sweat was pouring down his body. And then he went up another step. And this time he noticed it kind of seemed a little bit easier. And he thought to himself, maybe it's going to take me a little while, but maybe I can do this. And so he pushed again and stepped to the next step. It was even easier. He pushed again and got to the next step. And he continued 10 steps. 20 steps, 30 steps, 40 steps. He got halfway up, and he noticed, I'm tired and this is hard, but I'm doing it. I can do this. I can see the top. And so he kept pushing. 70 steps, 80 steps. And then he reached the very top. And by the time he got to the top, it wasn't that hard at all. The king met him at the top and congratulated him. And he said, look, I put at the top of these steps a magnet that would pull that armor up the closer you got to it. But I knew it was so heavy that most people would not be able to get past just the first 10 flights of steps. The test was if you will persevere, if you will maintain your focus, if you will push, even when it's hard, even when it seems impossible, and you're that kind of man, and here's my daughter. This video is about how to get to the top of those steps. So if we're going to talk about focus, then we have to talk about the things that derail our focus. And one of those is the principle of drift. Now, I don't mean Need for Speed. I mean that we will set out on a target, we'll set out on a goal that we want to accomplish, and then sometimes we just kind of drift. You know, we start looking at other things or focusing on something else that's happening in our life, or maybe we take on multiple different projects and the focus gets lost on the thing that we originally set out to do, and we just kind of drift and we end up over here and we end up over there and we don't really know how. Drift can derail your efforts. The man climbing the stairs, you know, if he had allowed himself to drift, well, he'd have fallen right off the tower, and that would have ended his journey really quickly. The second thing that you got to watch out for is the dangers of procrastination. Actually, I've got this really funny story about procrastination that I want to tell you. There was this guy, well, I'll tell you later. If the man in the story had said, you know what, yeah, I know there's a long line, I'm going to wait maybe the next day or in a few days. If no one makes it to the top, then I'm going to give it a shot. Well, somebody else might have beat him to it. The more that you put off things, the more that you wait, the greater the chances increase that you're not going to do it. You're going to lose your focus, you're going to lose your chance. Now, the third thing that you have to watch out for is that stress and complications strike. When he took the first step, he knew it would be hard, but he didn't realize how painful this would actually be. He didn't realize how exhausted his muscles would become. When this happens, when things get hard, when things get difficult, that's when it's really convenient to begin using excuses. Oh, well, you know, this suit of armor really isn't my size. You know, it's not that I'm not strong enough or that I'm not persevering. It's if the armor fit me better, then I would be able to get to the top. But this just isn't a good fit for me at this time. Or maybe it's the excuse that, well, you know, it's really hot out today and I don't want to get dehydrated. I'm sweating a lot, so this isn't a good way to go. I don't think this is going to be what works for me right now. When the going gets tough, excuses will stop what you're doing dead in its tracks. So you have to have the mentality of, instead of accepting the easy way out, accepting an excuse, you're going to take responsibility for what's happening, and you're going to find a way over, through, or around. Now, how do we refocus? How do we keep on target even when things are hard? Well, number one is you have to define the goal. Know what it is that you want to accomplish. I mean, really put some thought into it. Sometimes people make goals and they're just willy-nilly. Well, I want to make X amount of dollars. Okay, well, how are you going to do that? Or, you know, I want to date a really pretty girl. Well, okay, what kind of girl? Where are you going to meet her at? You know, be real specific about your goal. Pin yourself down to specific objectives. So in order to meet that goal, what do I need to do? You're going to start a business. Okay. Are you going to get funding? Are you going to get an investor? You know, are you going to put together a business plan? Are you going to? There are 1,000 factors that are involved in that. And you have to spin yourself. Sometimes it feels like you're spinning, but pin yourself down to very specific objectives. That way, like the steps, you can accomplish the first objective, the second, and the third, and eventually you're going to climb all the way to the top and you'll achieve that goal. The second thing is to remember the reasons. Remember the reasons of why you set that goal. You know, this will help you to prevent trouble that might come down the road. Things that will stop you from achieving the success. Now, the guy that was in the suit of armor that climbed the stairs, when he got to that point where he felt like quitting, he felt like giving up, he had to think back to when he started. And remember, what were the reasons? Well, maybe he was sweating all day anyways, pushing a plow around a farm. Maybe he felt like he didn't have a future if he didn't attempt this. Maybe he was lonely and the princess was just so beautiful. He wanted to spend that time with her more than anything, and then he looked forward. So remember where you came from, remember the reasons of why you set out about this, and then look forward to what you're going to accomplish. And that will motivate you. Lastly, and this is kind of a three-parter, you have to hone in on exactly what needs to be done. What are the action steps that need to happen for each specific objective of your goal? I would suggest writing those things down. Honing on exactly what needs to be done and execute. Writing them down, making the plan is great, but if you don't do anything about it, you're not going to get anywhere. So you have to hone in on exactly what needs to be done. You need to execute on every one of those steps, and you need to assign some time frames. The guy in the armor could not have climbed those stairs for a year. He would have died of starvation. He needed water. He needed to achieve his objective within a certain time frame. And if you leave a goal or an objective open-ended, well, I'll get around to it when I get around to it, well, then you're at risk of squirrel. Your attention gets distracted, or you procrastinate, or something else takes priority. You have to set a deadline and say, I'm going to make this happen. So these are some ways to maintain your focus and your perseverance. And if you're able to do them, then you're going to get to the top of that tower. Until next time, don't just be transformed, be kinged.